Speaking on TV6's Morning Edition, political analyst Dr. Mukesh Basdeo says that the calls being made by the government for the opposition People's National Movement to provide a proof of funds for the recent redevelopment works done on Balisier House should not be considered as, quote, a political witch hunt, because there are two other independent parties involved in the matter.
To address it as in the context of being a political witch hunt, we cannot neglect to understand that there are two other parties that are involved in this, and that being the judiciary, which gave the authorization and the order for financial searches to be done. And then you have the police, which would have had an open investigation ongoing, and they would have actually presented the information to the learned judge, who would have signed off on the order. So these two institutions are independent institutions that have deemed it necessary. There is something to look into, and this is what is required here.
Dr. Basdeo thinks the matter is more related to political party financing and wealth accumulation.
The whole question that we're looking at is based against the backdrop of wealth and how wealth is accumulated, how wealth is earned, whether wealth is accumulated through legal means or is it wealth accumulated through ill-gotten means. I think this is where the question actually lies.
Dr. Basdeo also harked back to the PNM's time in government from 2015 to 2025, where they passed legislation pertaining to campaign finance reform.
So it is something that we need to understand where the wealth actually came from for the construction of this building, because one would understand that it is based against the backdrop of a legislation that is on the law books, that was passed by the People's National Movement while in government in that period 2015 to 2025. So it is legislation that exists, that is to prove your wealth and so forth. However, the legislation never saw the light of day to become law, right? So there was discussion that was placed, right, on what we call campaign finance reform.
In a release dated July 11, 2026, the PNM also pointed to the campaign finance reform legislation, saying, quote, "The People's National Movement was the political party that brought forward legislation to regulate campaign financing in Trinidad and Tobago. We sought greater transparency and accountability in political financing. The UNC wanted absolutely nothing to do with those reforms and refused to support the process established to consider them." End quote. Dr. Basdeo also re-emphasized the need to wait for the outcome of investigations.
So I also wait to see what will be the outcome of these findings. It is not to be used in the simplest of way as a political witch hunt, but to get at some of the source of where that money was generated from.
Dominic Ramroop, TV6 News.